In my practice as a plastic surgeon, a lot of what I do is procedures to make people look younger. Now, for people who choose to have this done, this is meaningful. They experience improvements in quality of life, and there may even be some longevity benefit. But I don't like to call it anti-aging. In fact, for years, every time I would hear about the latest anti-aging product or treatment coming out, I would cringe a little bit because I knew it was very unlikely to affect the aging process itself. But all that is changing. That was then, this is now. The longer I've been doing this, the more curious I've become about the biology of aging. I wanted to know, why does it always play out in certain ways? Why do some people seem to age more quickly or more slowly than others? And really, I wanted to know, how could I do more than just deal with its effects after they occur? So I'm not alone in this. There's been an immense amount of research in recent years. It's become a really hot topic. There's a huge longevity biotech industry developing, and I can tell you honestly, we are at the point now where it is possible not just to slow aging, but to reverse it. Before I tell you how that is done and how we know that it works, I want to tell you a little bit about why we do it. When we talk about longevity medicine, we're talking about extending healthy lifespan, not just lifespan itself. So many of the things that occur with aging lead to the diseases of aging. There's a transition. It's not just all of a sudden you get a disease. Age, in fact, is the #1 risk factor for most chronic diseases. If you live long enough, chances are you will have to deal with one or more chronic illnesses. And much of our healthcare expenditure occurs late in life, often without meaningfully improving quality of life or extending lifespan. So the idea is to extend what we call health span. If we understand the biology of aging at a fundamental level, then we can solve the diseases of aging and stay healthier longer. Now, in order to develop ways to counteract aging and really to understand aging better, we have to be able to measure it. Obviously, a clinical trial with health span as the endpoint could take decades to do, and whatever procedure you were testing would probably be obsolete by the time you had your results in. So this is where one of the first key developments comes in. We measure biological age with highly sophisticated tests known as biological age clocks. Other terms you'll hear are methylation clocks and epigenetic clocks. So here's where I have to geek out a little bit because I want you to understand some of the science behind this. Think of epigenetics as sort of the molecular software that drives your DNA hardware. If your DNA, your genome, is your library of information about you, then epigenetics is the librarian. If you think about the fact that every one of the cells in your body, every one of the billions of cells in your body, has the exact same DNA, how do they become different cells? And that is determined by which genes are activated, which ones are turned off, and when and for how long and in what combinations. So that is the business of epigenetics. Now, the other key to understanding this is that every time a gene is turned on, there is a molecular tag placed right on that gene, right on your DNA. And these tags are permanent. They accumulate over your lifetime. So they form a permanent record of gene activation that is unique to you. The other thing to understand is that we can now count these. A form of artificial intelligence called deep machine learning is used to count the methylation tags and to map them to determine your pattern of aging. The earlier versions of these tests were trained on historical samples on subjects whose health outcomes and lifespans were known. So we're able to identify the patterns that predicted those outcomes. So now, many generations of these tests later, you can see they've been in use for a number of years now, we can get highly specific about how each individual is aging and use that information to develop a longevity plan. We know that we can measure aging. We know that we can determine how you're aging and develop plans around that. The foundation of all this is the stuff that you already know. It's diet, exercise, stress management, sleep, and social engagement, which may turn out to be the most important. There are certain peptides, certain drugs, certain supplements that can really amplify the effects of that. But what really interests me is, how do we leverage all this information that we have to go beyond that? We are the first generation to have a detailed enough understanding of aging biology to conceive of ways to reverse it and to be able to test them. There is one procedure available today that is proven in a clinical trial to reverse aging biomarkers, that is, to make you biologically younger. How this came about is one of science's more unusual stories. Some years ago, experiments were done in which the circulatory systems of two genetically compatible animals were temporarily connected. Now afterwards, when this was done with a young animal and an old animal, the old animal started becoming younger. Its gray hair started growing in dark, it gained muscle mass, it became more active and more alert. The younger animal started aging faster. So something in the plasma was communicating this. Now, you might think, why don't we just take plasma from young donors and use that as an anti-aging strategy? And this is in fact being done. It is not FDA approved, it is not without risk, and it's not really available in the US for those reasons. But if we think about the fact that the plasma from the old animal was accelerating aging in the younger one, maybe we can use that information. Maybe we can somehow clean the old plasma and go with that. And that can be done using a technique called plasmapheresis. This is an FDA-approved technology. It has been around for a while. The study I mentioned uses a very specific form of plasmapheresis called Therapeutic Plasma Exchange, or TPE. Now, this was a very impressive clinical trial that they did for several reasons. First, it was a randomized, prospective, sham treatment-controlled trial. So that's like the placebo group in a drug trial, where neither the subject nor the clinical investigator knows who received which until the data is unlocked at the end of the study. Secondly, they used a whole range of aging biomarkers. They didn't just pick a few that they thought were more likely to give them the results that they wanted. And third, it was published in a peer-reviewed biomedical journal. Now, peer review is also anonymous. I do these for plastic surgery publications, and you don't know who the authors of the study were. You just judge it on its merits based on the data that they give you. The study was sponsored by a Seattle-based company called Circulate. If this is something you ever find yourself considering, I would encourage you to go to a Circulate-affiliated clinic where it'll be done by their highly experienced experts using their state-of-the-art equipment. I've had it done. I had to go to California for the first one. It's an easy procedure, took a couple of hours. Afterwards, I went for a hike, flew back to Seattle that night, went tango dancing the next night. So I can say, honestly, after only one procedure, I could dance tango at a reasonably advanced level. Went to work out, could do 10 pull-ups. In all honesty, I could do those things before. People would ask me, how do you feel? I said, honestly, I couldn't tell a huge difference after one treatment. I had to remind myself not everything that makes you feel better right away is good for you, and the reverse is also true. After the third treatment, though, it was pretty obvious. I could tell something's going on here. I felt more energetic, I felt stronger, more alert. Now, that was just my experience. Not everybody's will be the same. But I can honestly tell you that this is the first time in history that anybody has been able to say, I have a procedure that will make you biologically younger, and back it up. This has been a high-level overview of a lot of information. There's so much exciting research going on right now. Some of this will pan out and some of it won't. There's also a lot of hype in the longevity space right now, and it's very easy to be led into spending money on things that are risky or won't work, or both. My advice is that biohacking longevity is not a DIY proposition. Work with a longevity medicine expert. Your lifespan may depend on it. Thank you.